British farming was always going to be the biggest sacrificial lamb of Brexit. But there has been a failure by many British people to recognise that they are also the sacrificial lambs, because food is linked to health, and Brexit is having an enormous impact on the food that we all eat. It's making it more expensive, it's making it lower quality, and that is having an impact on our health. Not only that, there is less food around every year, and that is making us food insecure. And for this reason, every single person in Britain should be backing British farming. In December 2022, David Catt, a farmer and fruit and veg wholesaler, spoke to LBC about what is happening to our fresh food that's coming over the border and the changes that Brexit is ensuring. And things have only got tougher since then, because we have more Brexit controls of imports coming into Britain, and there's still more to be eked out. It is true that it's easier for us to join the single market and customs union than it is to sort out a veterinary agreement to ease these frictions between us and the EU.
You're in Maidstone, and you're a staunch Remainer, I gather.
Morning, Chris. Yeah, I've always been a staunch Remainer, because I think Brexit is the most ridiculous thing this country's ever done to itself. Because prior to being in the EU, we had one of the lowest GDPs in the Western or in Europe, and when time we come out, we had one of the highest, and we're slipping back down the slope again at the moment. But
an interesting statistic for you. I know somebody was opposed to statistics earlier, but
no.
Before Poland joined the European Union, Poland and Ukraine had the same GDP.
Yep.
Since Poland joined the European Union, its GDP, even before the second invasion by Russia, is 5 times that of Ukraine.
5 times, yeah. No, that's it. That's why Ukraine is so keen on joining the EU, because it's the biggest single trading bloc in the world. And when you consider 80% of our companies that used to trade with the EU no longer do so, and those are HMRC figures, it's got to be the most stupid thing. And if this country wants growth, the only way we're going to get growth is by rejoining that single market. I import from the continent. I've got a wholesale fruit and vegetable distribution business, serve a lot of pubs and restaurants. We're going back to your earlier conversation. And the red tape that we're involved in now in importing product, all of our produce now is 24 hours older when it gets here, because it takes 24 hours for the paperwork to be done.
David, is it David or Dave?
David.
Or in Wales, you'd be Di. But
Di.
So Di the veg, as I'm now going to call you.
Yeah.
Is that the reason why, whenever I buy a pepper, it goes off much quicker than it used to?
Yeah.
And broccoli's got brown bits at the end.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Everything we receive is 24 hours older. I used to be able to order 9 o'clock on a Monday morning and receive the produce at 8 o'clock or before 8 o'clock on Tuesday morning. And now it doesn't arrive till Wednesday. And that's all of our produce. And we get mushrooms from Poland. And we used to order Monday and used to turn up to us Tuesday afternoon. It now doesn't get here till Wednesday. And a day in the life of a mushroom is a long time. Just perishable.
There's a movie still to be made, The Day in the Life of a Mushroom. But tell me, so does that mean you end up wasting a lot?
It puts my waste is higher, so that has to be built into my costing. So that's part of the food inflation.
Right.
Every as consignment I buy, I think the charges are about £140 per consignment, and that doesn't matter whether it's a pallet or a truckload, but per consignment. Some of the Polish guys now with the mushrooms, bring a whole truckload into their UK-based depot as one consignment and then distribute out of, so that helps the cost down on that. But if I'm buying 2 or 3 pallets out of Spain, that costs me an extra £140 for that consignment.
But sorry to be stupid, Di the Veg, but wasn't this obvious back in 2016 that this would happen?
but it wasn't ever explained to people. These things weren't explained to people. I knew it was happening. I was sort of having arguments with other farmer friends of mine, but all these farming boys now are so short of labour permanently that crops are going to be waste. And I think next year is when you're going to see inflation on fresh produce because of the cost of fertiliser, because of Ukraine. The labour shortage, you can't get the labour because of the constraints of getting them in from Europe. And sort of growers are going to produce less. And what happens then, because the supermarkets are saying they're not going to pay any more for the stuff, so people will grow less. That's how it works.
And if there's one sign of a mad country, it's when we end up ploughing thousands of tons of fruit and veg back into the ground, isn't it? Really, on our own soil. Anyway, David, thank you very much. Or Die the Veg, thank you very much.
The budget will raise up to £520 million per year. But farmers and campaigners say they threatened the future of thousands of family farms. I'm joined now by Tim Chambers, a farmer who's one of the biggest raspberry growers in the country. Very good morning to you, Tim. You just tell how many raspberries do you grow?
About 3,200 tonnes of raspberries on our farms in Kent.
3,000 tonnes. And you're just telling me all of them are hand-picked?
Every single one of those is hand-picked.
So I don't know how many individual raspberries that is.
Hundreds of millions.
Hundreds of millions of hand-picked. What's the workforce for that?
About 2,000 people through the summer season.
And talk me through your views on this inheritance tax rule change. Could that threaten the jobs of those people or not?
It definitely threatens jobs. It threatens livelihoods. It threatens the rural community. Inheritance tax is a cost to the business, a cost to farming. Farmers generally have worked long hours for very little return, and the bonus was that you got to hand your farm on to your children or beneficiaries at the end of your life. If you add on inheritance tax, you have to change that dynamic. You have to start making money because it's just a cost. So it's not the biggest reason why we're here. It's the whole of the farming community has frustrations over government, inheritance tax, pushed onto us, rewilding, environmental, energy. All of that is diminishing farming returns.
Talk to me about some of those other ones then that we don't discuss as much. I mean, rewilding, you get paid for that. Do you know?
You get paid, but it's minimal compared to what you should be earning from food production. And rewilding, from a greater good point of view, is taking away food or land that could be used for food production. And then when we hear we should be on a war footing, we should be concerned about national security, about food sustainability, are we rewilding, or we're using good agricultural land to produce solar or biomass fuels? It doesn't make sense. I mean, if we have an issue in the future...
But is there a greater good to it? I mean, that was your phrase.
Yeah, there is a greater good to it. If the government wants us to be secure, have sustainable food where we know the provenance, we know the quality of it, it needs to be grown in the UK.
How close are we as a nation to being self-sustaining on our food production?
I don't know the exact numbers, but I believe it's somewhere around 60% of food in the UK will hold the UK population. But we still import 40% of the food. We're doing free trade deals with various nations around the world which don't have the same standards of food production as we do. And they're coming into this country at a cheaper price than we can afford to do it here because government policy is pushing cost onto us.
But it's really interesting, Tim, here you outline all these factors. So is the inheritance tax rule the final trigger for you to want to protest, as opposed to the sole reason?
It's just one other thing, yes. But it does...
But if they U-turned on that, would you go quietly back to the day job?
No, there's still issues. The cost of farming in the UK just doesn't really return the money that you would need on a normal business model. Farmers work long hours, often way below the minimum wage, to supply food. It is not sustainable that way. If you took away the inheritance tax, there is still farms are still amalgamating. There's still reducing number of farms because of the profitability of farming.
Just to wrap things up for me, I mean, you expecting the government to U-turn on this? I know a lot of...
No, they won't U-turn.
So what's going to happen? You're going to keep protesting once a month for...
We just need, as a rural community, as a farming community, to show the government that there is a feeling and that they have to listen to us. They're not going to change what their view is at the moment. Food prices will go up. Competition in farming will go down. and imports will increase because free trade deals allow them to swamp our country with cheaper food.
So how does that all make you feel? How are you going to react? I guess it's going to wait for the next election.
It's frustration, isn't it? Just frustration that you have a perfectly reasonably good model working now where farmers are producing food. Yes, we do get subsidies from the government, which go to maintain a profit level which allows us to continue, but you're throwing all that out, the baby with the bathwater, for what? A corporate view of farming where if corporate businesses take over farms, they will not do it for nothing. Mm-hmm. They will have to make returns on capital, they will look at their P&L, their balance sheets, and they will force food prices up.
Well, Tim, it's been really interesting getting your perspective today. When do you start picking those? How many did you say? Hundreds of millions of raspberries?
We'll start on the UK production. We'll start sometime early May, and we'll go on till early December.
So May is when we should really start eating British raspberries.
You'll see all British soft fruits in the shelves from April onwards from glass houses, and then right till the end of the year.
It's just raspberries that you guys do?
No, we do all the berries and top fruit as well. So
there we go.
We grow a lot of
fruit.
fruit.
We missold you in the intro. Biggest raspberry farmer in the country, but other fruits too.
Well, yeah, that'll do.
There we go. Tim, thanks so much for joining us.
Good
to have your perspective, Tim Chambers. Now, some of Britain's biggest infrastructure projects are...
Hello, beautiful.